All right, I think we're live. So let me just make sure we're good. So I'm just going to check some technical stuff, but I think we're live. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's live mastermind, or not mastermind. We used to call it mastermind, but coaching call. I'm really excited about this because we're going to kind of change it up this week, and the way we're going to do that is I'm bringing on someone who's become a good friend, someone who I admire and respect in our industry because just the information and just a giver and his knowledge and as he's on this same journey as really I guess most of us is really trying to build a business. And obviously here at Investor Carrot we're really big on the lead generation aspect of it, and I know a lot of the questions I personally get is how do I deal with VA? Should I hire one? Where should I go? How can I do it? And even though it's a little bit out of the scope of lead generation, I think it's a great question. And real quick, guys, so I'm going to have Max Maxwell. He's here with me right now, but I'm going to introduce him shortly. But really, I'm going to have him expound a lot on really what's the proper mindset with VAs. Being in this industry, just kind of being in different groups, different conversations. One common thing I get the feel of is, like VAs, I don't know, there's just negative stigma to it sometimes because one overseas, then they look at the negativity of using one overseas. But I was having a conversation with Max, I think it was in Phoenix. And man, he said one word, or I think it actually was on a podcast with Trevor somewhere. I heard him use the word remote employee, and just me hearing that, man, just changed the whole dynamic of how I saw VA. Of course, he was able to expound on that as well. So I know we get a ton of questions on VAs here at Carrot through support. So I thought, man, what better person, who better than to bring on this week's coaching call to talk about it. But I'm going to introduce him shortly. But some really quick housekeeping stuff, guys. Let me just go ahead and get this call started. I'm really excited to get this going. So where do I need to be? Okay, here we go. All right. So as I mentioned, actually, shoot, let me do this, guys. I'm just that super excited. Hey, if you guys can hear me and see my screen, and it should be a picture of Max, please send through the chat box. Give me a double yes. Let me know that you can see and hear me fine, and we'll go and get this call started. I just want to make sure that we're good to go on the tech side, that there's no issues. I really want to get this call going. So let me just double check on my end too, just in case. Let's see. All right, let me just double check as I'm waiting. Awesome, cool. We got one person say double yes. So yep, I think we're good. So sweet. All right, let me just go ahead and let's get this presentation going. All right, so again, my special guest today is Max Maxwell, and we're going to talk about change your mindset about VAs. And I think this really could be honestly a game changer. I'm not exaggerating on that. Like I said, I'm one of those guys who's kind of set in my own ways, and I'm going to be expanding out to some different marketing, even outbound stuff, which, I've reached out to Max. He's an expert on that as well. But on this call, we're going to really talk about VAs because he's been able to grow his business pretty quick. Just really having this nice infrastructure, and a big part of that has been his VA. So, but real quick, some housekeeping stuff. Check out this week's new Carrot content over on our blog, 10 things the best real estate websites for agents have in common. So check that out. Also, a new blog post, 3 leadership lessons from the front lines of customer success. This is a pretty cool thing. One of the things that we outlined at our last Carrot retreat is how can we as the customer success team, who really are on the front lines, what are some things we can share that can really be helpful to other businesses, right? So we're going to start releasing some of these blog posts quarterly. I'm not sure exactly the time frame, but check out, that's the first one. So check that out. Give us some feedback that as well. And as always, check out the most recent Carrot Cast, which is this week, why those who use why those who use positivity succeed and those who don't fail. fail, and that's with Trevor. So I always love his personal insight. No guess with that one, but I always love getting his insight. Just he always continues to amaze me. So make sure you guys are changing that. I know Trevor really loves talking on the mindset stuff. So so check that out. And weekly dose of awesomeness. So as everyone knows, it's not tied into one particular person, but we just released a new SSL security website update. I'm not really the techie guy in the team to really kind of expound on that, but we did release a blog post on it. So make sure that you're reading it. Gives you more insight. If you've been with Carrot for a while, and when I say a while, it could be in a month or two longer, you'll have to activate that. And we have a blog post to help you walk you through that, or just simply reach out to support. So check that out. So super excited about that, and just continue to show you the constant activity with Carrot in terms of evolving, always staying ahead of the curve, always making sure that literally they've got our back. And I say our back because I'm still an Investor Carrot member myself. I'm still a full paying customer myself, and that was kind of my choice, as I probably have said many times. It's just because that's how much I value the system, and I know Max does as well, and I'm sure to share that as when I introduce him here. But this comes from actually this was a feedback from Jeffrey. Thank you. Implementing SSL properly can be difficult, and I'm impressed by how easy you guys have made it on us users. Everything worked perfectly per the instructions. So awesome, Jeffrey. Thanks for the feedback. And as I mentioned, guys, reach out to us if you need help with that, or just revert back to that blog post that we did. So awesome. Your coach for today is me, Adrian. Again, I'm in Dallas this week for some masterminds, 2 of them actually. And when I spoke as a speaker yesterday, got a chance to talk on online lead generation, and it was a lot of fun. And so make sure, guys, that you continue to jump on these calls, because the same value that these people are paying a lot of money to attend and to listen to us experts is what you guys get on a weekly basis, right? So make sure you guys are jumping on these calls, because this could be your edge. This could be the one thing that can set you, take you to that next level. And and thank you guys for those of you that are always jumping on these calls for your support, your dedication, and obviously you're here for a reason. And I just want you to make sure that you guys are getting the most out of it by taking action by everything that you're learning today, including today's call with Max. Max, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I had my microphone muted.
Awesome.
Just so I didn't say anything crazy.
No, thank you, man. So I'm gonna actually put Max on camera here shortly. But yeah, Max, thank you so much for taking the time out. I know it's kind of last minute. When I say last minute, what week's notice? But I know you gladly accepted, so I appreciate that. Just super, super awesome person that you are. I know you're just. Actually, I was telling Max before we jumped on this call, like, his name was being brought up over and over among our peers, and it was really great feedback. Like, the one common thing that I was hearing, and I'll share this with you, Max, is like, Max, he shares everything. Like, he's an open book, nothing, not someone who holds back. And I was like, wow, that's Max for sure. So, and obviously you're living by that by jumping on this call today. So super appreciate that. So for those of you who are not familiar with Max, he is an Investor Carrot member. I will say that, and then I'll turn it over to him, and he can tell us more about. Max, tell us more about who you are, how you got started, where things are going, how things are going for you, and then we'll make the transition to our topic today.
Well, Adrian, thanks for having me, and everybody at Carrot. Thanks for bringing me on and allowing me to be a part of this weekly call. So I got started about 1.5 years ago, and it was just a mental decision after learning more about it briefly. I was able to see some results pretty quickly by just going out and doing and kind of not worrying about if I was doing it correctly. And so after just going out there and doing my first month, did pretty well, and I just snowballed that into month 3, and now we're 1.5 years, and things are going well, and we're growing even more and faster.
No, that's awesome. I have you on camera, by the way. So there's Max. Also, in case I forget, because I know we're going to jump into some pretty cool, heavy content. But if you guys are on Instagram, make sure you're following Max. Dude, I'm always looking forward to your stuff there. I know you share a lot, especially on your Insta stories about what's going on, the projects that you're working on, and really the little nuggets. And I say little nuggets, not that they're not great, but it's in this business, I think sometimes we're just that one nugget away from changing our mindset, or one little thing that can make all the difference on what we need to do and get away from maybe where we are, which is we maybe flatline. But I know a lot of times you'll say something in your Insta stories that just like, wow, I've never looked at it that way. And I've been in the business for years. And so just one little thing. So guys, if you're not following Max on Instagram, make sure that you're doing that, and make sure you're keeping up with the Insta stories. I know he drops a lot of good stuff. You'll occasionally do some live stuff. And you just provide great content. So just wanted to make sure I get that out before we forget later.
Awesome. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you.
Yep. So as I mentioned, Max, and you might have heard me tell this, would love to kind of get your insight, and really would love for you to, and this includes me, is educate us really on how much your VAs have had an impact. And I hate to even use VAs because I love your perspective on that. I love your insight. And when you said that, I think even me and Trevor were talking about it. Like as soon as I listened to it, I'd reach out to Trevor, like, dude, like, did you hear that? Because I know we're big on mindsets, and perception, I think, can you be an asset or can be a liability, right? Because how we perceive things, in my personal opinion, sometimes can really keep us from going into new areas, or we know that there's resources out there that maybe we can tap into, and we're fearful because we don't know how to do it, or we have this wrong perception. And especially with VAs, I know that sometimes we listen too much to other people because what they say is we perceive as truth, but yet it was just based on their experiences. A lot of times their experiences may have been totally wrong, right? So, but I know that conversation that you had with Trevor, and just the way you guys that you touched on, shoot, like that was a game changer for me. So yeah, if you can share a lot with us on what that is, I'll just give it over to you.
Yeah. So, I mean, my virtual assistants, and I can use that word, but what I like to call them is my employees. They just happen to work remotely. They're a big part of my business. I have been using a remote employee probably about 4 months into my business. And the first thing I started doing was just admin work, simple admin work. They weren't full time. They were just complete tasks for me. One, either I didn't know how to complete myself on Excel sheet, or just, certain stuff like that. And go to present day now, I have 4 full-time remote employees, and they pretty much run my entire business. They're my first point of contact for any new lead that calls in. They are also my first point of contact for an outbound call. I truly, there is correct. There is that negative stigma with the word virtual assistant. And that's just because people have underprepared themselves to go prepared to train a virtual assistant or train an employee. You can easily train chaos and confusion, especially if you don't know how to do it. So one of the things that I would say when most people, because I run a Facebook group, I'm pretty sure you're a member in there. And, a lot of people I see that they say, hey, look, I'm looking to hire a VA. And I know that person just started wholesaling 2 months ago. And my first question is, what are you looking for that VA to do? Oh, well, I need them to do outbound calls. Well, my question is, do you know how to do outbound calls?
Oh, I love that.
Because you can't expect that person to learn from out of the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
All you're doing when you hire outside of the United States, most of the time, is just taking advantage of the strong dollar versus somebody else's dollar. So when you can pay somebody $5, $6 an hour versus, $15 to $20 in America and still get just as good as output or better, then that's all you're doing. So you wouldn't hire a $15, $20 employee to do cold calls if you couldn't show them or train them how to cold call. So, what I did, and I think what other people should do as well when they're looking for virtual assistant or remote employees is to be able to actually teach what they want this person to do, because your expectations can be high, but you can't train the person because you don't know what to do. So master what you're trying to train before you let it go. And I think if you do that, then you're going to have great results.
No, I'm so glad you hit on that, and I'm actually on the Instagram Live too, so we'll kind of do double things, dude. Dude, I'm so inspired by your Instagram. That's why I've been so active recently, is because of you, man. So I appreciate the support I get from you as well. But you know what? I think that's one of the things I love that you hit on, Max, because I think so many people, so many of us, and this includes myself, is that we get so caught up in lead generation. We get so caught up in the things that we need to do, the task, right? But for some reason, we don't treat this as a business. And I think you hit it right there. It's like, how can you teach something that you don't possess first? You know what I mean? And that, as I'm thinking about it, that makes perfect sense, because now, how can you set up a process? How can you set up a job description without you knowing? I mean, yeah, I mean, it's like, dude, like that just hit me on the head. I mean, it's so simple, but because I know one of the biggest questions that I get personally, whether it's in Carrot or outside of Carrot, is I don't know what job description that to put. So let's say they decide to go on Upwork.com, because I think that's a common place of where people go for VAs. And I'm just, now it makes sense why people struggle with what to look for, because they're not doing it themselves.
Yeah, so you can't, and that's funny. I just had a question from a fairly successful wholesaler in my inbox this morning. He says, "Look, I'm ready to expand. I'm looking to hire a virtual. Do you have a job description or task that you can pass on?" And I'm like, "Actually, no, I don't, because it came first when it was just do certain tasks for me that I'm not good at doing. Here goes the tax list. Run this tax list." And I would create videos. Here's a tax list. It's 4,000 names. Find the owners. Make sure they're at least 2 years or more, and then add them to this Excel. They start out a task. And it started as I grew more and more. Then I passed on more responsibilities that they can easily repeat. And that's what made it like, it just made it easy. I mean, I was able to, listen, when you're hiring somebody, and I take it very seriously when I'm hiring somebody, my remote employees depend on that paycheck Friday. So first of all, I'm not going to take on the responsibility of hiring somebody if I know I can't pay them for that longevity. And another thing is, I get to know my employees to know what their goals and their expectations is. Because my first remote employee, she still works for me today. Her aspirations was not to work for me forever. She wanted to grow an actual virtual assistant company to help other investors, because she was so knowledgeable. So anytime you see me on YouTube or Instagram and say, if you do need an assistant, please reach out to Alexis. And she's then crafted her process over the last year to where she can find anybody. I think you might even have reached out at one point and said you were looking for somebody. I said, go talk to Alexis. She has a process down pat. So I take it serious when you are hiring somebody. Don't just say, oh, it's $3, $4, $6 an hour. No. Can you afford that for 6 months? Can you train this person? Can you bring them on to keep them busy enough to where you feel like you're getting the most out of the dollar you're spending?
And I love that. And that's one thing I really like about you, Max, is that you're so practical, especially in your approach in this, because like even in the lead generation world, we do a lot of strategy calls, and everyone on this call, you guys have all access to this, to strategy calls, right? You can jump on a one-on-one call. You guys have these calls too, but sometimes we have to have some type of objective. Like there has to be an end goal in mind, and you just work backwards from there. So like in my world, I guess you can say, is that so many people come to me say, hey, can you help me get leads? And that's the extent of their goal. What I mean leads, like, okay, what type of leads that do you want to get? How do you want to get it? Right? It's not enough just to say, I want leads, and then expect things people or things just to kind of put it into place for you. Now we can guide you, but you know what? Let's figure out, let's organize your resources first,
Hmm.
right? And then from there, you begin to be more realistic. You become invested, because I think a lot of times as investors, we're not invested into the things that we want to accomplish. So what happens? It's easy to slack off. It's easy to not pay, maybe put in the intention, or like you said, be willing to put in that process. Be willing to ask those questions like, hey, what's important to you? I mean, that's why I think it's coming together for me, is that's why I love how you, just that remote employee concept, right?
Hmm.
Because I think when we look at VAs, let's just be honest, guys, when we say VAs, we probably don't care about what's important to them,
Correct.
right? They're just a taskmaster. Now we're just taskmasters, right? We just kind of like, but you're so right, because I have an in-house team, and I know that I probably do treat them differently because they're my employees. They depend on me on a paycheck, right? But then VA, we're just kind of like, and I hate to say it, it's almost like they're kind of down here, and we never want to invest into them. We're just more like, hey, let's delegate this out to them. But I love that mentality. And one thing I will say that I've learned, and I don't know if your VAs are from the Philippines or Filipino, but one thing I know about that culture is that they are loyal. They are loyal people, right? It's just in
Correct.
their culture. So if you can harness I think if we can just put a plan into making this a real process, and like you said, caring out for their needs and just everything you're saying, I think that's where the success comes from. So I think really that's why, guys, this call wasn't necessarily about, hey, how do I hire this like A, B, C, and D? It's really about the mindset, because I think if we can change that, knowing A, B, and C is going to be a lot better. Of course,
Yeah.
reaching out to you as well, your resources as well. I'm sure you'll share a little bit of that too. But I think it just starts with that, having that proper mindset for sure.
Yeah, and one thing you touched on is loyalty is a big thing. I know I'm not the biggest player in this game when it comes to this, and I'm so open and so given. I talk about who my virtual assistants and who my remote employees are, and I know the guys that can afford more than I'm spending will actually go out, and I know they have reached out to Alexis. And she's never told me, but I know they have reached out to her to take her. But because I am more than just a boss or employer to her, because I care about her family, what she does on the weekend, that other stuff, it makes it she's so loyal to me. And then she comes to me with ideas. Hey, have you ever thought about going after the fire department report for houses that are burnt down? Those are things I don't even think about.
Yeah.
So that means when we have our meetings, she's at home thinking about how to improve the company. All my employees, they care because I care about them. And that's the main thing, is to find somebody you can enjoy spending, because we have meetings just like this right here to
Mhm.
talk about what can happen. But a lot of people, what I say before you go hire a virtual assistant, learn what you want them to do.
Mm.
It's no different than any other job. If you're the manager at McDonald's and you're hiring somebody to flip burgers, you better know how to teach them how to flip burgers.
Mm.
Because if not, they're not going to do it right. They just don't come off on the street and flip burgers correctly. They can't. They don't know how to set the
Right.
timer on the fries. All these things you have to teach and you have to know how to do. And when is the right time to hire a virtual assistant depends on you.
Mm.
When you are overwhelmed, and after I got all the admin stuff out of the way, my next hire was somebody that answered the phones. So Leica answers the phones for me. She is the first touch. And the reason why that was so important to me was because I was good at marketing and I was consistent with my marketing. Bandit signs every week.
Right.
Um, Craigslist ads every, whatever schedule we had. So the calls were coming in, and I was the type of guy, I wouldn't answer all of them. I wouldn't return all the voicemails. I would shift through the voicemails to see which ones I felt like were motivated just from a voicemail, and then call them back. And 2 months down the road, I would go look up the property and it sold for what I would have offered for it or less. So based upon my needs and with the tasks that I knew that I didn't want to do or was not revenue generations for me, I then delegated that to someone else. so that I can go out and do everything else. And now in my business, the only thing I do on a day-to-day basis that I have to do is make sure that the phones ring and people are constantly visiting our websites. That is my lead generation is my only responsibility in this company. Everything else is handled by somebody else.
I love that. I love that, man. And you said something too that triggered something too that you really joggle my mindset. And let's cover the mindset or this thing that I know is going to come up if it hasn't already through live chat. But people are always people are going to probably say, "Hey, oh, you have your VAs make calls."
Mm-hmm.
Touch on that. I love your perception on that as well, because I know the negative thing about VAs too is like, oh, they're they don't talk English, or it's this and that. And I know a lot of people say, well, I'd rather use U.S. workers, right? So you touched on it like in the previous conversation, and it's so true about the difference between American workers, whether we want to admit it or not.
We're lazy
versus VAs overseas.
I hired 2 American workers. It didn't work out, and they were costing me 4 times as much a year with a guaranteed salary. So, I mean, a month. So I was paying cold callers $1,000 a week. Okay. They couldn't complete that same task that somebody's doing for $1,000 a month. And one of the good things that we do is we screen our applicants just like we would screen them if they were here. So if you can't speak good English, then you don't get hired, because I need you to do outbound calls. You're not the right fit. Maybe you're good in Excel and collecting data and organizing the transaction of the closing. So they get screened. Alexis, who hires all of my VAs that need it, they go through a screening process, and we do a one-on-one Skype interview with the person. And it's that easy. And before I even started that, what I would do is I created a call rail number before I had Alexis. I sent out on Upwork a paragraph. I said, call this number and read this paragraph. And if I like the way you sound, we'll do business. So, and that was just a double check. That's just a tip for anybody that doesn't have an Alexis on their team. But have them create a 1-800 number, or a number that, whatever number you want in a call rail, make it just for when you're hiring. Leave a paragraph for them to read, and have them read that paragraph back to you on voicemail. And if they can do that to your satisfaction, then that's step number 1, because if they don't sound great, then everything else, all the other skills doesn't matter. Right? So my outbound cold caller, Paul, speaks very well English. Probably speaks better than I do. And he's good at it. And actually, I was actually going to do a video or a podcast with him on there, so people can understand what he sounds like, what his day-to-day tasks are, so you know what to go out and look for.
Right.
It's important to have a good, and then, like I said, you can go find a good American worker if you're willing to go through it. But it was just easier for me to find it this way.
I love that, man, because I think that's where so many people, I think, as one thing I'm learning at this mastermind is that I think our biggest obstacles is always ourselves and growing a business, right? Getting stuff done. I mean, I know I do strategy calls, and I do a call with this particular person. Then I follow up with them in 3 or 4 months, and they still haven't done anything, right? And part of it is just because now they're trying to do everything. And the only way we're going to grow is we need that help, right? And I think a lot of people want to go that VA route, but just so much that negativity stuff that's kind of there. And so I'm glad you're touching on this stuff, because you're touching on really, really, I think, big things that has created this false perception. Mm-hmm. And part of it too, I think, it's just us not taking responsibility, right?
That's
like let's first figure out how to do this, and then you kind of have the right to delegate it to someone else, right? Because it's so funny. We have these expectations that we put on people, and they're not performing, and what happens? We blame them, right? Instead of like, you know what? I'm going to take responsibility. I probably didn't do the best job in training you, right? I didn't set them up to succeed, is really what it came down to.
Correct.
Right.
You're a bad coach.
Yep, exactly. So no, I love that. And also, guys, I really want to make this call interactive, and don't want to keep Max too long, because I know he has some other stuff going, and I also have this mastermind I'm at now. But if you guys have specific questions, start sending them through the chat box. They're in the right corner. So just send through any questions, VA specific. I know that Max does a lot of cold calling as well, but we're probably not going to touch on that because of lack of time. But I know Max is going to be he's going to be one of our market leaders, presenters, and I know he's going to touch on that there. So if you guys want more information on that, make sure you're reaching out to us. I think we still have that available. I'm not sure, but I know Max is going to be an upcoming presenter on that, and he's going to touch on cold calling, which I'm excited about, just simply because I'm pivoting my business, right? I know Investor cares about online lead generation. We love PPC. I know you love PPC, SEO, but a lot of times if you want to grow this business, you got to pivot into other marketing, other campaigns, and Max has done that very well. But in order to scale, you need that support. You need that, you need people in place to help you do that. We can't do it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So let me do this. So let me see. Also, Max, as you're feel free to maybe cover some other stuff that's coming on top of your head too. I'm going to start reading some of these questions and see which one we can discuss.
Sure. Another tip I would say is don't want a VA, need a VA. Right. So don't want an employee, make sure you need one. And there's a big difference. If you just bad at the phones, get good at it first before you hire it out. Or get at least decent with it.
Right. No, that's excellent. So here's one that's really good. I know you have a resource for it. I know you shared it with me, so I'm kind of put you on the spot. Hopefully it was okay. But one question is, which company does he hire VAs from? I know you have your own source. I'm not sure if you're okay with sharing that, and because I know that you told me that it was.
Yeah, if you're serious and really need a VA, you can email Alexis, which is Alexis at cashhomestriad.com. Or if you just want to try to explore it yourself, you can use a website called onlinejobs.ph, and the PH stands for Philippines. And that's a good place to start finding a VA if you have the good description and know how to use that calling method that I told you about, have them leave a voicemail. That's a great method to start there. And, if you're real serious and you're already drumming up business and you already know how to do things, you can reach out to Alexis, and it's alexis at cashhomestriad.com, and she can help you. But don't waste your time, I would say.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, guys. You make sure that you're really invested into this. Like I said, we don't want to just be Alexis is not Upwork, it's Upwork.com. I mean, if you want to experiment, I'd rather have you guys take action than just kind of sit in the sidelines. If you want to just kind of get your feet wet and you just want to maybe dip your toe in the water, go to Upwork or the one that you just Max just mentioned before. But if you're someone who's really needing that go to that next level in terms of that help virtually, then I would suggest Alexis. Let's just kind of give that respect in terms of just making sure that you're in it. You have the resources to get that done. But other than that, that's the other resource that check out that Max just gave. Or have you had any good experience with Upwork just by chance, Max? Because I think most people tend to be familiar with that, just in case.
That's where I found Alexis.
Perfect. Okay, cool.
So once I took and understand, and here's another thing, understand how their culture works. And this is another culture thing, right? Mm-hmm. Their ultimate goal when they live in the Philippines, first of all, they teach English at a very young age. And their ultimate goal is to work from home for an American company. Okay. And that is what they strive to do from, when they enter that corporate world, is to leave corporate. Yeah. So Alexis shared that with me. That is usually like who she hires. They're ultimately happy because they get to leave the corporate world, and they get double what they would get at the corporate world, and they get a better lifestyle at working from home.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's kind of almost like you're profiling, right? Mm-hmm. The right person, because if you can get that right person, they're probably going to value exactly what they do. So there's that, I don't know, let's say extra effort or whatever, but but no, that's some really good stuff there. Some good insight.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see. Hey, Max, how do you spell Alexis's name again?
Alexis.
All right, so hey, Dwayne, it's Alexis.
So it's Alex Is.
Yep. Cool. I've hired VAs in the past. How many interviews should I go through before settling on a remote employee?
So what I would do, and what Alexis does, is she has the initial interviews from all the applicants, right? And then she narrows it down to the top 3. Those top 3 have a Skype interview with me, basically virtually back to back to back. So first thing you should do is have the applicant read, if you're looking for a cold caller, have the applicant read a paragraph on a voicemail. If you're looking for someone with admin skills, you're just going to have to test that out. You can give them a task for a few dollars, whether they take PayPal or whatever it is, say, complete this task for me. And if they're able to follow every instruction, then you can say, okay, we'll complete this task. Now you're going to pay more for the task than you would if you hired them, but it's going to save you a lot of money in the long run if you hire the wrong person. Say, hey, $10, I need you to scrub this list. I'm going to pay you $10-$20.
Okay, good stuff. Here's kind of a culture thing is, how do you get your assistants to open up to you? Their culture is very reserved and they feel bad when they have to ask questions.
Yeah. So I learned that from John Martinez, is set the expectation right away when you hire them. So we hold calls 1:00 every Tuesday. And what we talk about is, so I used to be in the military, and one of the things that I disliked about being in the military was that the commanders and generals and the brass did not have one-on-one conversations or briefings with the people that actually went out and did the work. Okay. So what I tell them, the question that I ask is, hey, what did you learn last week that we can try or implement to improve your process and to make us all be more successful? Because I let them know I value their opinion so much, because it's true, right? So when I initially gave Paul a cold calling script, he has now adjusted his cold calling script to where he rewrote it to where he knows he get less hangups and he gets more people paying attention. Now, for me, that's very valuable, because he obviously is task oriented and goal oriented, but he now, since his bonuses are tied to appointments, he wants to make sure he has the best script possible. So he has free reign to make sure that script works the best for him so that we can convert it. So I would just be honest with them and say, hey, listen, we're all learning this business changes on a weekly basis, and you better believe it does. It changes on a weekly basis. So let's talk with each other and make sure you let them know you value their opinion.
I love that. And you know what? Something that I learned at this mastermind, from probably one of the smartest guys I know in the industry administrative wise. So you're basically saying, Max, like, you got to be a leader, right? You got to be a leader.
Yeah.
And I think the mindset we've had with VAs is that we've been dictators, to be honest with you. I think that's the mindset we've had, is like, hey, go do this, and then, like, that's it. Like I said, we don't set them up for success. But it sounds like, based on what you're saying, and I think you got to be a leader. Like you said, a leader sets the tone, right? Sets those expectations, and then now these people are willing to follow. And I know Filipinos, I know that culture, they're willing to follow. They just need that leadership, right? And you can't just look at them just as someone who just carrying out a task for $5, $10. You know what I mean? So guys, have a leadership mentality, even in your VAs, even with your remote employees, for sure. So no, that's awesome. I love that as well. All right, cool. So we got that one. And Filipinos have a mindset of gratitude.
Correct.
So do you, I don't know what this in details, maybe you can expand on this. I'm not who sent this through, but do you record your VA calls? I don't know.
Absolutely. I
Okay.
record anybody's calls. And that's because it's quality assurance and it's training for us to go back. I record my own calls so that I can go back and analyze those calls at a later time. But yeah, we use CallRail, and any outbound call is recorded. Any inbound call is recorded. For one reason, the automatic call recording is attached to Podio so that my acquisition manager can listen to the conversation as if he was there. And I can do quality control checks and training things on our weekly calls to say, hey, let's do this different. Let's do this. I like the way you did this.
All right. Sweet. Here's a good question: is how frequently are you engaging with your remote hires? What's this meeting schedule like, considering time zone difference?
So they work on our time zone, and they know that going into it. And I think they're 12 or 13 hours ahead of us. So they work, and they're used to working night because, remember, a lot of the large corporations, such as Verizon, DirecTV, all the insurance guys, all have, workers over there. So culture is used to working that. When you work the corporate call center world, they're used to working our hours. All my employees are on Slack.
I love Slack. Yeah.
Yeah. So we all have, day to day, like we're in the office together. So we have Slack channels where we all communicate. My lead manager she constantly speaks to me on a regular basis. So as much as I can, you don't want them, the time zone different doesn't matter. You
Right.
literally want to just feel like, okay, you're in your office and they're in that office over there. They can call me at any time, and you just have to put that tone that it's okay. I want to be bothered, because if I'm being bothered, there's potentially a lot of money on the line.
Good stuff. Here's kind of a strategy VA type question, kind of combined, but great question. Do you have your VA using MLS to run comps for you, or are you verifying ARV yourself?
Yeah, so our strategy system is how it works. Depending on where you are, we don't get too granular with the lead manager knowing the exact ARV. And here's what happens. And here's why. I wouldn't care if that person was here in America as well. Our lead manager that takes the inbound calls, her job is to gauge, set the tone with the seller, the lead, on what we can provide, and build rapport and get some information and possibly some pain points out of the lead, as into why they responded to some of our advertisement, learn some more about the property, and be able to move the conversation from there. We use a simple tool. When I ask her what the ARV is, she's getting it from a website. We use totalviewrealestate.com. It's a very ugly website, but it gives us, it's usually lower than Zillow by a few thousand, and it has some comps right there as well. Now, my acquisitions manager, it's his job to get down to the granular. But what we found out is that Total View Real Estate gives us the upper advantage to be able to say, okay, the house is worth, Zillow says it's 125. Total View says it's 119. That's the number we're rolling with, because we're trying to get as low as possible anyways. Sweet.
Good stuff, man. Let me see here. Here's kind of somewhat off topic, but I think it's a good one. Is Victoria, I have a VA who's also interested in starting a VA business. What is the best way for me to help her? Because I know me and you were talking the other day, and you sound like, basically, I hate to say you found a great remote employee or VA. I think a part of it is you just have great leadership. So I think that's a big part of it. So that's why, too, guys, I think, touching on this, I think really it's not about, I think so many people emphasize about using, hey, I found a good VA, or I didn't find a good VA, or I can't find a good VA. Instead of maybe making it about the VA, maybe you're not a good leader.
Maybe you're searching in the wrong places.
Right. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like along with online lead generation. One of the biggest topics that we discuss for strategies, people say, man, there's a problem with my website. I have a conversion issue. And usually most times I know it's not a conversion issue, it's a traffic issue.
Because we got the same website.
Yeah, exactly. So usually then I work backwards with them, and then we begin to, okay, let's see where to start from, right? Let's say PPC, for an example. They're just using the wrong keywords, right? So that was the problem, but yet we want to blame the website, or we want to blame SEO didn't work, PPC didn't work, or cold calling didn't work. Usually it's the process, or in this case, maybe you're just not a good leader to, like you said, set those expectations properly up front, right? Knowing what you want to delegate yourself. I think that's a big one right there.
And it's exactly, it's all about, being a good leader is about knowing yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm bad at too.
Yeah.
So knowing what your strong points are and try to get somebody. So to answer her question is have a call one day and just ask them, pick their brain. What do you know about this service? What have you done? Alexis, I believe she was the hiring manager at a call center for a big Fortune 500 company over here in America. So she was doing that in the Philippines. So she understands that. My lead manager also, she was the training manager for the company. So you see, Alexis brought her friend over. So, have a conversation with them about what they want to do, then find out what it is they want to do. And if it is opening up a virtual assistant place, Alexis, I've had conversations as to me even investing $10,000 to $20,000 in the Philippines to create that thing for her. Right. So I've had real conversations with her about, you want to do it, let's do it. And if you want to have your friend or your virtual assistant or your employee start doing that, start referring your friends to use your employee to start looking for their VAs. And you'll know right away if your employee is good at finding the correct people, because that's how it worked out. Adrian asked me for a VA. I said, listen, use Alexis. She's good. She's going to charge you $150 up front to go find this person. But when you do, you get to choose, and she's not going to stop until you find the right one. And it's that simple. So do that for them. Let them earn that money, because $150, we know that that's a lot of money over there. Let them earn that money. And that's why it's so valuable to them. And then you're going to see if the person is real serious or not.
I love it, dude. There's so many nuggets here, man. I love this. We got to do these calls a lot more, for sure. And I'm really looking forward to your market leaders presentation too. So, like I said, guys, if you guys want, if you're not getting the market leaders training, reach out to us. I know just the cost of loan alone for what Max is going to share with that is gold. So that's the only reason why I'm pivoting to cold calling, was like, man, I'm really seeing Max, what he's doing and success he's had, but it's just not that. But I know for sure that, dude, like, this guy is doing it. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that. So here's some other ones. So I don't know. I'm still getting used to the whole process of what virtual assistants can do. Here's one, Max. How much can I expect to pay for a cold call appointment? I know it's a little bit off topic, but so
you're talking about somebody outbound cold caller?
Is that what you're talking about, JB? If you can respond to me right away, when I don't want to keep up this call. So expand on that a little bit, JB.
So if they are looking for an outbound cold caller, that so how my system works is I have an outbound cold caller that their job is to simply find out if somebody's interested in receiving a cash offer. That lead is then pushed to my lead manager. There's no more than a 5-minute time difference between that lead is acquired and they're called by the lead manager. Each one of my employees comes in at a target rate. So let's just say I have a budget of $240 for that person. Okay, that's a rough number. That's the top number. They're going to come in around 190 and work their way to 140. They're going to start at, let's say, roughly 190 for a 90-day period, and then they're going to jump up to that the 220, and then we're going to eventually get to that 240, whatever you want to make that mark. But then I have a set of weekly bonuses that they can reach. My cold caller's weekly bonuses are based off how many appointments he gets from cold calling. My lead manager, her bonuses are based on how many of those leads that he passed to her actually turn into contracts. And then everybody shares a pot of $100 every time we actually get a deal sold, right? So you're talking about an extra $200 from a deal makes a lot of difference to everybody else, right? You can structure that however you want to structure it, but I know that each lead is going to be $200 worth of bonuses.
Dude, man, this is awesome. Jermaine, this is a 4-hour work week on steroids. That's cool. That's awesome. 4-week work week on steroids. Let's see here. I think there's a good one here. Sierra, 2 of my favorite businesses influences in one space. Thank you, Carrot. You're welcome. Love it. What do your other 2 remote employees do? So let me ask you this, Max. How many total remote employees do you have? I guess that's kind of on top of what Sierra's asking is what's the task that they typically do? So
yeah. So I have 4 total. Alexis is controls everybody. She's over the entire company. She's also my admin personnel. So she does a lot of the admin work. She probably works 16 hours a day. Not just for me, but just in herself, between what she has growing for herself and for me. She's a hustler. She's a female version of myself. She's a hustler. So she does all my admin stuff. She takes care of all the pay. So I pay her and she pays everybody else. Okay. So one payment goes to her. She makes sure it all goes to everybody else that works on the staff. She does a lot of the admin stuff. She's the one in charge with conducting the meetings, making sure they happen. Any new lead gen, just to make sure that everybody else is doing their job. Okay. So she's like my office manager / assistant manager. Okay. Then I have Paul. He's a cold caller. He cold calls about 6 to 8 hours a day. Okay. Then I have another part-time cold caller that covers shifts and does some other stuff with some other cold calling stuff that we do that I don't really want to talk about on this one. But he managed that part and he's part-time. And then I have Leica, and Leica does all of from the lead comes in, she deals with them until they exit and we sell their house. She's the caretaker of my leads. So she makes sure the leads are handed and transitioned to everybody from place to place. She makes sure the appointments are booked for Francis. She makes sure the attorneys get the information that's needed. So they do a lot. Everybody does a lot, but they just know that on a day-to-day basis, I think I took off November and December, and December was my best month ever.
That's awesome. So here's kind of really a twist, and I kind of see it. I'll kind of share the way I see it, but so Ellie, great question. So I think you answered actually her first question was, can you go over some of the tasks or roles that each of your VAs do? And then she followed up after that. Reason why I asked what roles or tasks they do is because I feel like if someone's responsible to do many things, they may not be an expert of any. So let me ask you this, Max. I'll just kind of jump off of that question. Should we have the expectation that our remote assistant is an expert, or is it more or less us training them in the tasks that we want them to carry out?
I think in the best case scenario, an employee of any facet, whether they work for you here in the United States, I consider myself an expert. And I feel like the best employee can probably only live up to 75% of what I can.
Yeah, agree 100%.
Right? Because that there is me training them, and then there's going to be a loss of power being transferred to them. Right? So at the best, you're going to get a 75% of yourself. 75% of me is still great. And I hope everybody thinks about themselves like that.
Exactly. And even in the whole coaching aspect too, like that's one of the things that I've learned from Trevor, and the things that really I teach as well is like here at Investor Care, I know SEO is a big part of it. And now, of course, we have the SEO training, the 3 leads per day. Now, it's kind of like, are you going to get everything from that because you're not an expert? Probably not. Like you said, you're probably going to get 70, 80%. But then the 20% is going to come directly from the source, right? So like a master chef can give you his recipe and break it down, but will you accomplish 100% of what he's able to do as an expert? Probably not, until you work with that person one-on-one, to kind of maximize that. I think that's the way I kind of look at it. So I think that it's in line with that. That's why we do these coaching calls, guys. That's why we do the one-on-one strategy calls. Is yes, the training, the course, all that is there for you as a resource, but you probably only accomplish a small percentage because you're not an expert. So I think that's where the VAs, I really believe, I'm learning, just even in this short call, I'm learning like, okay, like you said, 80% of them is a lot better than zero, right? When you're maxed out trying to do all these different things in your business.
Yeah, because you can't even give 80% when you're doing all of these things yourself.
Yep.
So if you can have individuals replicating 75% of what you can do, then that's great. Listen, your business, there was a small transition training period of a low when I decided to go after getting employees. There was a transition period of about a month of training where my business was fairly low. And that was because it was a lot of training going on and a lot of me building new systems, because that's essentially what we're doing, right? We're creating the engine. We're building this car, and each employee is responsible for their own task. And then all I'm responsible for is pouring the gas, the leads into the tank and let that car go, because I built it. So I'm just in charge of making sure that the leads are there so that the machine can do what it's supposed to do, what it was built to do.
It kind of is in line with what I'm learning, what we're learning, even here at this mastermind I'm in Dallas. Is, I think our biggest bottleneck is always going to be ourselves. And when we try to when we try to delegate stuff out, unless we put that initial investment into making sure the process is there, the expectations is set, instructions, and just all this stuff. I mean, it kind of goes back to what we started this call off with, is that, man, this is a business. So we got to treat it like one. Right. And I think a lot of us, we just have this hustle mentality, like, okay, delegate this over here, delegate this over here, delegate it. And it's like, we just kind of like this, spray and pray effect. Like, hopefully you get the right VA, right? Hopefully this works out. Hopefully I put my website out there and I start generating leads, right? Without really no focus. And unless you really kind of decide to focus in and properly set up your structures and all that correctly, you're never going to be, one of the things I teach is target marketing, right? So I think kind of the same concept goes with, like you said, it doesn't matter if it's a VA or any employee you bring into your organization. You got to invest that time in making sure that it's a success for them.
Yeah, it's important, and you'll know. Don't force the VA issue. You'll know when the right time. You know when the time is there. And I didn't get one until I was doing 20, 30,000 a month. So don't force that issue, because at that point when I got stuck and it was 20, 30, 20, 20, 30, 30. Okay, I got to change something because I got to scale here. I'm doing too much. Listen, everything that at the wholesaling business, I was doing it all, from putting out bandit signs till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, to answering the phones at 8 o'clock when people are going to work, to maintaining the website, to going to the courthouse, to pulling leads. Nobody taught me this. I had to go out and do it. And then when I mastered it, I delegated it. That was it.
Sounds practical to me, man.
That's simple.
It's that simple. It's that simple. I think, man, I know, just listening to you, like, man, I was overcomplicating the whole process. But I think, me personally, I would love most of you, everyone on this call, I think this would be a good accountability even for yourself, those of you in this call. Obviously, you're on this call for a reason, right? Like, I would love to kind of get everyone's takeaway. I know we're going to wrap this up here shortly, because I know I got to get back to my meeting, and I know, Max, you're doing what you do, and just appreciate you taking out.
Going to the courthouse right after this.
Oh, sweet. But I would love to hear everyone's takeaway. My takeaway, I think, is really master what you try to delegate out first. And here's the thing too, guys. And I'm going to just kind of be blunt about this is I know we're all in that self-development world, right? We're in that circle, do this and this. And sometimes be careful what you read. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times maybe to some people, me or Max saying that may be contrary to what someone would read and some of these books out there that just kind of hocus pocus in some ways, like things are supposed to come together, or a VA should, there's this mentality VA should just be a task carrier or doer. But I just think you're changing. I think really my mindset is really changing in a lot of ways on how I view this. But that's my biggest takeaway. So I would love to hear you guys' takeaway from what Max is talking about. But for me, I think it's just you got to be a good leader. I think sometimes we can be that for our employees in-house, but for some reason that just falls out when it comes to remote employees. And that's my goal, is to be a better leader. And so I love that. Let's see. So here's a good one, and we're gonna start wrapping this up too. Besides CarRail, well, let me just read the full thing. Real estate is a Real estate is a relationship business, but the systems and processes are critical, especially when using remote employees. Besides CarRail and Podio, what systems do you use to keep on top of your business?
Oh man, that's a lot. Investor Fuse is our CRM. Obviously, Carrot is our website. CallRail is is our intermediary phone call thing, but everybody has a dial pad. Dial pad is like our office phone, and CallRail is just the in between. I mean, I can go on for days. I can list things that come out of my checking account on a monthly basis. A lot. I mean, there's a lot of tools, and
Yeah.
it's kind of, and just because my tools are successful for me doesn't mean they're going to be successful for you. But find out what you need, and when you see that you have the problem, there's usually a tool out there that can fix it for you.
Right. That's good. So let me ask you this. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up now. Most of the questions are coming through about cold calling, which again, Max is going to just lay it all out in the market leaders class presentation that we're going to be doing in fairly soon. So keep an eye out for that. So those are going to be great. I think in that you'll be able to lay out all your tools, your resources, which again, I'm excited about you in that call. I know there's some additional questions in terms of maybe your business structure and stuff like that. Max, actually, what I can do is, I'm not sure if you have anything that someone can go to where you, I don't know, other than your, do you want to just drive people over to the Elite Facebook page? I know you provide a lot of resources in that group.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing, because okay. I'm in and out of there. So just if you're on Facebook, just find Wholesaling Houses Elite. And I'm in there, and I answer questions when I see them. Other people, there's about 4,000 to 5,000 people in that group now, and we just really started it. So it's a good place to find some good information. Make sure depends who you're taking it to. If somebody, not everybody's correct, but I'll always try to chime in if the subject is not repetitive question that you can find in there.
And one thing I like about the group too, guys, I'll throw out there is that no one's allowed to solicit deals. Yeah. There's some house rules, which I like, because it just really kind of leaves out some of the negativity sometimes you see.
You're not there to find your cash buyers. I promise you, cash buyers are not on Facebook groups. They're not in there. So don't come there and do that. It's literally, we don't talk negative about it. We have people in there that are just started, just find out what the word wholesaling is, all the way up to guys doing $2 or $3 million in wholesaling in assignment fees a year. So it's a good place to learn, and there's all levels of people.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, man, Max, thank you so much, man. Again, guys, if you're not following Max on Instagram, and the reason why I really push Instagram is because you do a lot of Insta stories that you're just giving a lot of good tips, basic, practical, on-site tips as you're going through your rehabs, through the deals that you're doing. So I always find them inspiring. And usually, I don't know if you noticed, dude, like on the weekends, like I'll be watching you, like I'll be on Instagram, check out your thing. Like, dude, that makes me like, shoot, what am I doing here watching TV? I better revisit this.
You better cut that TV off, man. I don't even have a TV.
So it's really inspiring, guys. Follow people that So here's one of my philosophy, guys, is, and you don't have to take this, but take it for what it is. So for me, I like to seek mentors that are just a little bit ahead of me, right? Because they have the ability that they still have that fresh content, what's relevant today, and they can help you in the trenches of where you're at. Nothing wrong with having people you look up to. Maybe they accomplish great things, but honestly, I mean, realistically, can that person actually come into your life and really help you in your business where you're at today? There's some mentors that I look up to that accomplished what they did 5, 10 years ago, right? But I just think sometimes when you follow someone that's just that much ahead of you, there's just some freshness to it that they can pass on. They understand what's going on in the world. They understand what's going on today, and they can just really give that perspective. So that's why I'm really want to push Max's Instagram, because he's sharing those things in today's markets, using today's tools that we're probably all familiar with, right? So fresh. It's I guess you want to say just fresh content. So make sure that. What's your Instagram?
The Real Maxwell. The Real Maxwell.
Yep. Also, he has a YouTube. I know a lot of. Make sure you're subscribing to his YouTube channel.
Please, I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers.
There you go. Yeah, it's going to come on this call.
just search Max Maxwell on YouTube, and I've actually hired a full-time videographer that's with me throughout the week, and actually he's here right now recording this. So, it's I want to put out more content and kind of let you guys inside of the day-to-day stuff that what it takes.
And what it takes, what you're doing today. I think that was the main thing I really want everyone to. I was trying to communicate to everybody was you're doing this like today. You know what I mean? You're not sharing stuff that worked 2-3 years ago. Now there's certain. Yep, exactly. So as piggyback off of what Max is doing, his insight, and he's a smart dude too. And the reason why I say that is I don't really like people who are so one-minded, like, hey, this works, but this doesn't work. I love how you're open-minded. That's the other thing too. I like to follow people who are open-minded. Like
this business changes too fast and too often to not be open-minded. I'm willing to test anything for a little while, because it's always changing, and you got to be on. When people zig, you got to find out where the zag is, because that's how you make the money in this business.
Exactly. I mean, that's why even with me being in the online world, so many people online say, well, direct mail's dead, cold calling doesn't work, all this and stuff. And like, man, like they'll never know because they're so bound by tradition in terms of what they think works. They'll never grow. Right. So, I mean, like even this year, like I had to make that real late, like there's only so much I can do with online marketing. Now, if I just want to be comfortable and do nothing, then I'm okay. Yeah, then let's just keep doing online marketing. But if I want to scale and grow this business, and the reason why I want to grow and scale this business is because I want to have bigger impact on my community. Right. I want to have more impact on other people. And to me, that's what drives me. And I know that's what drives you. So, yeah, guys, be open. If you've been considering cold calling, check out Max, man. He's definitely a master on that, especially in the process on that aspect. But you'll get a lot of that stuff from what he's doing through his YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook. Make sure you guys are subscribing to his or get on the what's the name of the Facebook group? Did you already say it?
Yeah, Wholesaling Houses Elite.
Okay, sweet. All right, guys. I'm gonna let Max go. I got to get back to the meeting too as well. But was glad to hop on this call, Max. Super appreciate your time, dude. And keep crushing it. Keep inspiring those. Keep inspiring me, and just keep doing what you're doing, man. Appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adrian, for having me. And tell Trevor and everybody at the event you're at, I said hello.
I will. Thanks, dude.